Obi Waz. Hi Chris, I'm wondering if you committed yourself to being in the Sea Org for 1 billion years, what were the life changes, the gains and so on, that you had in Scientology that caused you to become so committed to the church? I mean, that is really a huge commitment, and you must have really believed in it all at that time. And what happened to those gains and changes? Were they all fake, unreal? Were you just fooling yourself? I was just doing an interview with a person today who was doing some study and investigation of Scientology, and this same thing came up, and it prompted me to want to answer this question since it was all sort of fresh in my head. Because I figured out a way to sort of talk about this or explain it, and it's something that doesn't really get talked about a lot, and that is the environmental influence on a person when they come into Scientology and while they're in Scientology the whole time. I've referred to it as a bubble world, or, you know, the insulated world of Scientology, or the culture of Scientology. And it's like this in any destructive cult, but there are actions taken on a person when they are first coming into Scientology, and they develop within the world itself, where the way Scientologists talk to one another, the way they interact, and the way they sort of care for new people and make sure they make it, is all around it's an environment of positive reinforcement over and over again. I think this has a lot to do with why Miscavige holds these events, these Nuremberg briefings, you know, where they're going to rev everybody up with all these inflated, exaggerated statistics and audio-visual presentations and, you know, shiny graphics and things to show how awesome and incredible Scientology is and how much it's doing in the world. It not only, when you hear about that stuff, it not only reinforces the idea that Scientology is making an impact on the force dynamic, you know, on the world, but it also, all of that reinforces the idea that the expectation that you're supposed to be getting super abilities and gains, and you're supposed to be every day a better person than the way you were the day before, because of Scientology. And this is not a small thing. This isn't like, you know, oh, we you know, Scientologists sort of talk about this every now and again. It's constant. And I became a staff member quickly, so I was living in this world all the time, right? And then in the Sea Org, oh my God, right? It's literally 24/7. So so let's get really specific. When I first went into Scientology, I did the communications course, but I didn't just do any communications course. I did the professional TR's course. It's the highest level communications course there is in Scientology. And I was told from the course materials that the end result of the course that I did was the ability to handle any social situation, no matter how rough, with communication alone. So if somebody were to confront me on the street, or try to mug me, or try to, you know, mad at me, or whatever the situation was, I was supposed to deal with it with communication alone. And the way I've come to learn, the way that we think, is we remember the hits and we forget the misses. This is why psychics work, right? Because, you know, cold readings and this kind of thing, you go in and they tell you things, and you remember the things that were right that they guessed at, and you forget all the stuff, you know, the 90% of what they told you was totally wrong, but you forget all that because you want to believe. Well, in Scientology, you're very motivated to believe that you're gaining and improving. And so after doing this course and being told that I now had this ability to handle any social situation, no matter how rough, with communication alone, I then filtered every experience that I had in life against this ability that I had. And when I would successfully deal with something with communication, oh, I'm so awesome. And when I wouldn't, just kind of forget about it, sort of sweep that under the rug, you know, wow, yeah, that didn't work out so good. You know, because I led a normal teenage life. I had fights with my friends, I had conflicts, I had social situations. Even after getting involved in Scientology and being on staff, I had one night with one of my first girlfriends ever, who was a Scientologist. And we were screaming at each other. I mean, we were breaking up. And this was like 1 a.m. We were both tired and exhausted, and we really shouldn't have been together in the first place. It wasn't a great relationship. And I definitely was not handling that social situation with communication alone. I was losing my shit. And it didn't particularly even occur to me, of course, while it was happening, that, that this was a failing of Scientology. It was, a failing on my part. It's another part of the mindset is that if something's not working, then it's on you. It's not on Scientology. Scientology always works. So it's you who's failing, right? And I'm just trying to get across the mindset and the positive reinforcement that occurs in the environment to give you the idea that I thought, in a sort of black and white way of thinking, that Scientology was absolutely going to work all the time. So every time it didn't work, I always had some reason or justification or excuse for it not working. And every time it seemed to work or did work, or I got some sense of what I thought was a positive result from it, and there were times certainly when I did, it was, hey, Scientology works, that's the proof, right? So it was always remember the hits and forget the misses. So after years of this, I was 8 years on staff in Santa Barbara, and I was 25 years old. So I had been leading a pretty insulated life at this point, because I'd gone straight from high school to a little, 3 weeks of college, getting recruited for staff, and then I was living as a staff member. So I was working 40, 50 hours a week, eking out a living with a full-time job otherwise. So all I was really doing was working. I really didn't have much of a social life. There was no internet really, up at that time. So I didn't have a, broad amount of information about Scientology. This is 1995. So when I joined the Sea Org. And I joined the Sea Org because it appeared to me that we weren't doing enough for Scientology. And that was why Santa Barbara was a small, failing org. I could point to all sorts of times when the staff weren't dedicated enough, weren't working hard enough, when policy wasn't being followed. I mean, you have 7 volumes of policy letters from L. Ron Hubbard that cover everything from the communication system to how to water plants to how to clean windows. So so I could always say, well, we weren't cleaning the windows right, so we were off policy. And I wasn't that ridiculous, but I'm just saying there's so many things to do in the policies that it's nearly impossible to actually get all of them done on a routine basis, especially when you have a small group of 10 people, 15 people who are working at the church on a routine basis. So I knew that I was in a situation where we weren't going to make Scientology expand. After working there for 7, 8 years, I was like, this isn't happening, but it's on us. It's not on Scientology. And so what I need to do is take more responsibility. I need to do more of this, all right? I need to double down. And, had I had more critical thinking skills at the time, and had I had a bit more common sense and maybe a bit more life experience in the real world, I would have, maybe questioned a little bit more what was going on. But the environment, the peer pressure, the insulatedness of my life, and frankly, my optimistic nature, and the fact that I really did believe in this stuff, all led me to the conclusion that what I needed to do was take more responsibility, not less, by joining the Sea Org. And so that's what I did, even though I didn't really totally want to do it. I didn't want to move to Los Angeles. I liked it in Santa Barbara, and I didn't like it in Los Angeles. And there were things about the Sea Org I was not looking forward to. But I figured it was kind of a point of my duty, my responsibility. I felt that strongly about it, and so that's why I went ahead and did it. And it took, a number of years to beat that out of me until I finally started waking up. And that was another 8 years before it first started dawning on me that something was really, really wrong with this organization. So, and another, 11 years before I finally got out. So I guess I'm a slow learner, actually. when it came to that. But I had all kinds of good reasons to to remember the hits and forget the misses. And that's about the best way I think I can sum it up. But I hope that answers your question.